Hello, everybody. In this video, I thought I'd do a little bit of something different. I have a different background. I'm just kind of hanging out here in my living room. And I just wanted to talk for a couple minutes about, well, I had this thought earlier today because I was trying to communicate with someone via text message as to my schedule for next semester because I'm a teacher. And basically I explain things as they should have been explained, as I thought they should have been explained, and this is where the problem kind of comes in. And the other person didn't really understand, even though I think the explanation was pretty like spot on, it was pretty obvious. But I think you also need to think about other things while like I'm not going to explain every single little detail, right? Like if you're a baby, and when people do that, I think when you baby or mansplain or you do these things, I think people may get offended. So I just basically dish it out like that, and then I had to re-explain what I meant a second time, and then the person was finally like, okay, I understand. This happened twice because I had to communicate with two different people. I actually ended up talking to three different people about the same issue. But all of this said is basically because it got me thinking. All of this got me thinking about whose responsibility is it for understanding. Right now, we can basically say, well, it's the responsibility of the person that wants to communicate what they're trying to communicate, or it's the responsibility of the person who's more invested in that, right? So like, let's say a student that wants to learn, they're obviously the receiver, they're on the receiving end of the communication, and if they don't get something and they're paying for it, well, they better ask questions, they better make sure they get it, right? They get the message, they get the lesson from the teacher. If it's like in the case of a worker trying to talk to their boss, maybe the worker is the one that needs to be responsible for communicating. And all of this because lately there's been like a kind of a linguistic revolution in Mexico where you don't really say, do you understand? Right? Like, let's say I explain something to you and then I ask you, do you understand? Nowadays, it's, do I make myself clear, right? So in Spanish, it has gone kind of from like, ¿me entiendes? To ¿me hago entender, right? Which is like, you're shifting the responsibility from the other person, like you're supposed to understand what I'm saying, to did I make myself clear? Do I need to correct the way in which I'm saying things? And we can automatically assume that it's a 50-50 responsibility, like it's 50% my responsibility to try to explain what I'm thinking about, or the ideas or whatever I'm trying to transmit in the clearest way possible, in the clearest, simplest. I don't know what the characteristics of an efficient message are, but I'm thinking the message should be simple, clear, easy enough for anybody with any IQ to understand. And I think it gets complicated when you're dealing with numbers, right? Because I was dealing with time frames, like the days of the week and the hours of the day. So a lot of people, and it was through message, right? So a lot of people are like, what? Like this, you need to abstract it in your mind, right? It's not like, Mary or Joseph did something, like this is like, can I change my 3 o'clock for my 4 o'clock on Monday, and then my Friday for 4, right? So it's like, wait, what? And they need to actually like sit down and maybe even write it down to understand it, right? I sometimes have to do that too, especially when you're dealing with like money, hours, days, right? Things like that. So 50% is my responsibility. And you can say 50% is the other person's responsibility, because what if I actually made myself very clear? The answer is super simple, it's right there, but the other person is just distracted. It's the other person is thinking about something else. The other person isn't even paying attention. They just, like when you read something but you didn't really read it, right? Like you read it and then you got to reread it because you don't know what the hell is said, right? Because you didn't pay attention. It happens to all of us. That's normal. And there's also this idea that text messaging shouldn't you shouldn't talk about important things through text messages. The reason I did this is because I had to talk to two, three different people, and I wasn't going to go from one person's office to the other person's office to the other person's office, right? So I just had to, like, for me, that was the most practical way to do it. I did have to re-explain two times, three times actually, to all three people. But I felt like, like I had the right attitude to do it. I had a positive attitude because it had to do with my money, with my hours, right? So I was willing to do it. Um, but it did got me thinking about, as a teacher, like how much of your responsibility as a teacher is how much of students' understanding of the content of the lesson is your responsibility as a teacher, and how much is it the students? You could have like teachers that suck, that don't explain anything, that don't do anything, that just let students do all the work, and you can still learn a lot if you're very disciplined, if you're kind of like if you're kind of like self-studying, right? If you read on your own, if you do the work on your own, right? Because I think there are a lot of students that say, oh, I didn't learn anything with that teacher because the teacher was bad. And it's like, well, did you have the topics that you were looking at? Did you read the books, the chapters that the teacher would say, read? Most people don't read nowadays. Most students don't read. They'll just like do some sloppy job and whatever. So yeah, this got me thinking, like, how much of it is actually the other. For me, it's always like, you know, I know that I may not be clear at times, or maybe sometimes I get like, jumbled up with my words or with my ideas. Um, but I also think that it's not that hard to get it. Like if you lose your train of thought, you can't just nod your head and go like, yeah, you have to say like, hey, I don't know what you're saying anymore. Like, can you repeat that again? Or can you paraphrase? Or, like people have to communicate. So, and I think a big thing is paraphrasing, like, not just saying like repeat yourself, but actually like saying, okay, so what you're saying is A, B, C. And you can say, okay, no, what I'm saying is A, B, C, and D, and E, right? Oh, okay, so what you're saying is A, B, C, and D, and E? Yes, exactly. Okay. Like Chris Voss, again, that's right, right? You got to get that person to say that's right. So basically, just let me know what you guys think about this format. And let me know if you think it's, in communication, you have I forget the name, but there's the receptor, there's the message, and there's, I want to say, the producer. There's in communication, you always learn that there's a person, throwing out the message. There's the message, there's the means, the vehicle, right? Is it camera? Is it written? Is it verbal? Is it body language? And then the receptor, the receiver, the end where the message is supposed to get to. So it's like, yeah, that's a pretty interesting question. Like, whose responsibility is it to understand the message? And we can get down to a practical sense and just say it's the responsibility of whoever cares more about the end result, right? If you're the one that cares about it, well, you need to put in that 80, 90, 95%, right? You need to make sure that the message is clear in the nicest way possible. Even if you have to repeat yourself, you have to do it nicely, cordially, politely, right? And if you don't really care, whatever, you can put in 20, 10%, 5%. It's funny because after that, I received a message from the student asking me about something, and I was just kind of like, yeah, whatever, right? Like, because I didn't really care about that. But the student was nice because, the student cared about it. So obviously they have to be making sure that their message gets across, right? Again, if you're a student or you're trying to acquire knowledge, well, you have to be asking questions, you have to be there, right? So let me know what you think about this rant, and you let me know whose responsibility is it? Is it the speaker's responsibility or the listener's responsibility? Okay, so that's all I got for this video, and I'll see you in the next one. All right, peace.